I just want to give my great congratulations to everything that the Malvern Hills Green Party has achieved. It's fantastic to see what you've done in your local councils and to be here actually today with this public meeting, which is absolutely full to overcrowding. And I just want to wish you all the very best for the council elections next year, and to say to people, please do get involved with the Green Party. It's growing hugely. It is the party that has the right answers, I think, to the big questions that we're facing today. So if you want to get involved, just please contact your local representatives, because they'll be delighted to have you, and together we can make a real difference.
This afternoon, Caroline is going to start by giving us a short talk, and that will follow that with a question and answer session, followed by questions from you in the audience. And we will ask you, please, if you can keep your questions short, so that we can pack in as many questions from the audience as possible during the limited time available to us, if that's all right. So followed by the questions from the audience, followed by book signing, Caroline Lucas. Thank you.
Thank you so much for a lovely introduction. Thank you so much for being here. I must admit, in my wildest dreams, I didn't imagine that we would have this many people. So thank you so much, and I can assure you the pressure is on now to make it worth your while for standing or hanging or doing whatever you're doing to try to make space in this room. But I am delighted to be here, and it really does feel like a kind of a coming home, having been born in Malvern and lived here for the first 18 years of my life. It's a town I know very, very well, and my parents are still here, so it's always lovely to come back. But it feels like the Green Party has certainly gone from strength to strength since I was last here, so congratulations for that. I was asked to say a few words. Actually, I got two different messages. One said talk about green leadership, and the other said talk about green visions for the future, so I thought we may as well talk about green leadership for visions of the future. So I shall roll them into one. But to start a bit on green leadership, I guess the first thing to say about green leadership very practically and specifically right now, of course, is that we've got green co-leadership, because the decision that was made at our last party conference in the autumn was to elect myself and Jonathan Bartley as co-leaders of the Green Party. And that was something that was convenient for us both. He has a disabled son, so he came to me and said it would have been hard for him to do the job full time. So this was a way of making it possible for him. It also makes it more possible for me, because I've got all of my parliamentary commitments as well. But as well as being something that was just simply practical for us both, we also wanted to demonstrate something about what we would say is leadership in politics and is about the new politics in a sense. Because by experimenting and modelling what a co-leadership model might look like in leading a political party, what we want to do as well is start a wider debate about politics in our country and how we make it more possible for more people to get engaged in politics. And if you look at that from the perspective of Westminster, for example, you cast your eye along the green benches, and I don't think anybody could realistically say that the people that you see along those green benches, by and large, truly represent the diversity of modern Britain. And the reason that they don't, or one of the reasons that they don't, is because the number of people who can have the kind of lifestyle required to be an MP in this country, in other words, being on call 24/7, being away from home, for days on end, is by definition relatively small. And so we want to experiment with things like job sharing for MPs as well. And we think it would be a very good way of ensuring that we have more people involved in national politics, because people with caring responsibilities, people with disabilities, people who've just got other things they need to be doing, would be able to have the chance to be able to contribute to the national political debate. But it would also be a way, I think, of ensuring that the politicians we have in Westminster do keep grounded in their constituencies, because I can promise you, again, looking around those green benches, you do find, some slightly strange people. I mean, I'm sure they would say the same about me as well, but Westminster is a bit of a Hogwarts. It is a bit of a bubble. And I think the more we have people who really remember what life is like in the rest of the world, that can only make our politics better. So we're trying to demonstrate a new kind of leadership with our leadership model, and doing that in a very serious way, challenging really how we get more people into politics, more women in particular, more people from black and ethnic and minority backgrounds. Basically, I don't think we can expect our parliament to have credibility and legitimacy in the country as a whole until it looks rather more like Britain as a whole. And there are a whole range of things that need to happen to make that possible. And if we're looking at women in particular, for example, where we've still got less than a third of Parliament being women, then yes, we need to have more more free childcare, more mentoring, all of those kind of support things. Women-only shortlists, I think we should be using too, personally. But I think we also need to change the culture of our politics, because anyone who tunes into the Prime Minister's questions and thinks of that as a sensible way to do anything, frankly, would probably be in a very tiny minority. It's a madness, and it doesn't hold the government to account, and it is just people baying at each other. And it does strike me that we have an opportunity coming up, potentially, because you've probably heard that Westminster is quite literally disintegrating, and I mean the building as well as the institution. And the institution is literally crumbling into the river, and it's full of asbestos, and they are saying that MPs are going to have to leave it for at least 5 or 7 years while they completely overhaul it. And so my suggestion is we leave it completely, we turn it into a very nice museum, and meanwhile we all go up to a lovely new building in the north, a nice glass building, perhaps building on the Bundestag or the Scottish Parliament or the London Assembly, come to that. There are some really nice models of parliamentary buildings which are accessible, which are not designed to make people feel that they don't belong there, that it's about keeping you out. Because that's what Westminster feels like, frankly, as you walk along there. Whereas these other institutions that I'm talking about, by the use of glass, by having a round hemicycle instead of the kind of the antagonistic, competitive way in which we face one another 2 sword lengths apart, and all of that stuff. It makes a lovely story in terms of our history, but it really isn't a very fit-for-purpose way of doing politics in the 21st century. So I think all of that is part of what Greens are bringing to the political debate, to try to bring Parliament, if not into the 21st century, I'd settle for the 20th, but we've still got our work cut out for us on that one. I mean, it's still the case that as you walk into the chamber, you can get offered your snuff, if you are minded to take some snuff on your way in. I did try it, actually. It was rather well. You still have the crazy thing that when the bell goes, you've got 8 minutes from wherever you are on the parliamentary estate to get to the chamber in order to vote. And my room is an awfully long way away from the chamber. I'm sure that's entirely coincidental, but when the bell goes, you've got 8 minutes, and you don't hang about, you just go. And one of the shocking things as you go, I'm in this room, a building called Norman Shaw North, which was the old Scotland Yard, if anybody knows that bit of London. So you're running through the other bit of Norman Shaw, then you're going through Portcullis House, the modern bit, then you're going underground and along the terrace, and anyway, 8 minutes is you have to run. But as you run, what you hear is everybody saying, what are we voting on? Does anyone know what we're voting on? I mean, it's funny, but it's shocking too, because honestly, the power of the whips in the other political parties is huge. In other words, everyone else is getting a little message on their BlackBerry telling them which way to vote. And so they don't need to know what they're voting on, they just see a message saying which way they need to vote. Now, I don't have a whip, so we have to work it out ourselves. And we are now known for being often the best people who do know what's going on, because people in my office, bless them, have been going through all of these amendments and counter-amendments, trying to work out what is going on. And you would have thought that, again, in the 21st century, first of all, you might have something that we had in the European Parliament called an explanatory statement, which was when you put down an amendment to a piece of legislation, in the European Parliament, it's actually mandatory to include a 50-word explanation of what you're trying to do. So instead of having an amendment that simply says, in paragraph 2, little b.1, change and to or, which unless you've done quite a bit of background reading means nothing at all, it actually tells you what that is designed to do. Now, this was such a threat to the whips in the other parties that they hugely opposed my innocent amendment suggesting that we might just like to let people know what they're voting on. And there was a huge debate, a very robust debate, which you can read about in Hansard when I made this suggestion that we might like to know what we're voting on. And of course, when it came to the vote, people voted against it, presumably because they didn't know what they were voting on. But it was massively frustrating. When MPs had the chance to change this, they didn't. And it was just interesting to see how the whips have it all kind of stitched up, really. And so I tell that story simply because, we pride ourselves on our mother of all parliaments, but it's got quite a long way to go, really, before it becomes as democratic as it needs to be and as responsive as it needs to be.